Hi there. My name is Jaspal. I'm a software engineer based in Qatar. Today, we are going to discuss about Amazon Web Services. Among it, one of the most famous one is the Amazon Simple Storage Service, that is Amazon S3. But before starting this, I would like to there are lots of cloud service providers available in the market, but why Amazon? The reason behind it is it provides durability, scalability, as well as lots of flexibility in usage of their services. And there is a whole bunch of services available under Amazon AWS. So in today's session, I would like to discuss about Amazon Simple Storage Service, that is S3. So in today's session, we will discuss about the basic concepts about S3, what is a bucket, and how to manage the bucket, manage the access to the content of the bucket and the permissions. What are the various storage classes that Amazon S3 is providing for storing the objects? Data protection, metadata, tag, keys, and the events. We will also discuss about the object lifecycle management along with versioning and how to create a static website, and what are the various performance considerations that we should take care while using this Amazon S3 service, and what are the various best practices, as well as we will do some hands-on on S3. So let's start. So when we talk about S3, why it's being preferred as a storage service over the rest of the other storage service providers? Because the first feature, that is durability. Amazon guarantee you 99.999999% of durability. That's quite high as per the service level agreements defined by the Amazon. It also make it sure that your content or your data is available 24/7, 365 days. The reason behind it is that whenever we save any content to the Amazon S3 bucket, it's automatically replicated in 3 availability zones. So if one of the zone goes down, it automatically provides you for the rest 2 availability zones. Next is the scalability. While talking about the scalability of S3 service, it is managed by the AWS itself, and it scales up and down automatically as per the requirement. It is also one of the most reliable service. It provides faster data access using multi-part upload to upload larger objects, as well as it is one of the most cost effective in terms because it provides various storage tiers like one zone, infrequent, standard, glacier. So accordingly, we can choose what type of data we are saving, how frequently we are using the data. So depending upon that, we can choose the storage tiers. And it is highly secure because by default, it provides the encryption. Other than that, we can also use customized encryptions also. It is also having cloud trail auditing purpose. We can see from which region or from which area our bucket is being accessed, who is accessing, so we can have a trail, we can have a log of it. Even there is also customized bucket access logging is available that we can enable it. It is very easy to integrate wherever we want to use it, and we can use it easily. So what are the various use cases where we are using this Amazon S3? So mostly we can use it in data archiving. We can also use for data lake for data analytics purpose. We can also use it for hybrid cloud storage. We can use it, and it is highly durable. So backup of the data is secure, as well as it's durable, as well as it's accessible all the time. So let's move on to the fundamentals. So when we talk about the bucket, so in S3 we have buckets. So it is a container which stores the objects, whatever we are uploading to the S3. we can create a bucket in any of the regions. So bucket is basically like creating folders, but there is no like explorer that we can explore the folders and subfolders like that. So just it's a logical arrangement of the objects basically. So we will talk about the key while doing the hands-on. I will show you what is the key and what is the URL that is being used to access the content of the S3 bucket. So we can create the bucket in any region, but in order to optimize the latency and minimize the cost, we should choose the region that is closer to its implementation. So suppose like if you're creating a bucket, if you're having an application in South or in Asia, so we should create a nearby region like in Asia region so that the latency is minimized, as well as cost is also minimized, as well as if any regulatory protocols are there, so that can also be met. In S3 bucket, we can also enable the versioning. So versioning helps us to maintain different versions of the data. So we can create a bucket in any region, as I said, and we can choose the nearby region wherever it is possible. So it will show you the list of regions while creating the bucket. So when I'm talking about while saving the content in the S3, I'm using the word object. So objects, they can be Word, Excel, or any video file or any audio file. It can be anything. So S3 bucket doesn't care about what kind of content we are placing inside it. It only cares for the metadata. So it consists of the object data and the metadata. So like HTTP data time, even we can customize that. That is all included in the metadata, as well as in the name value pairs are there that we can define in order to track our bucket. Moreover, we can also define the tags that will help us to know the usage of the service. So that is more about the customization of the services, user services, how much is being utilized and all that, more about the billing section. So whenever we are saving the object in a bucket, as bucket belongs to a specific region, it never leaves the region unless we do it implicitly. So we have to move the bucket ourselves. The objects from the bucket will never move from here to, we can use replication. We can use cross-origin methods. We can save the content from one region to the another region, from one bucket to the another bucket, that we can do. Okay, endpoints. Endpoints is basically the URL that is the entry point of the web service we are talking about. So AWS offer a regional endpoint to reduce latency. And suppose we have this S3 region, so that is the main endpoint URL that it will define s3.theregion.aws.com. So while doing the practical, I will show you what is the URL by which we can identify in which region the bucket is being placed. And we can see in the URL also as that it will also define along with that the key that will be defining the logical arrangement of the objects in the bucket. So every object has one key that is a unique identifier that defines in the form of like a URL, the bucket, the folder we can say it as, or the subfolders that we create in the bucket. So combination of the keys as well as the version ID, we can identify each object in the S3 that is being placed. So while creating a bucket, we have to choose, as I said, in which region we are going to create the bucket. So when we go to the S3 service, by default, it is global. It will show you all the buckets that you have created. But when you click on that, it will automatically move to the specific region in which the bucket has been created. So as said earlier, also the region helps to reduce the latency as well as the cost, as well as any regulatory requirements that are being required. While creating a bucket also, there are a few like we can say preconditions, like we have to define the bucket name in all lowercase. We cannot use the uppercase, as well as we have to avoid spaces, any special characters inside it, and it should be unique. It's similar to the one like we are buying a domain. It should be unique. It should not be created by anyone in any region by any user. So we can also replicate the data from one region to another region. We can define it ourselves. We can define some policies, like if you are copying the data to one bucket, it should automatically get replicated to in other region in another bucket. That is also possible. Next, the most important part, I will go through this theoretically, but we need to go through this practically in order to understand the data consistency model of S3. So for every puts that we are generating, that is read after write consistency is there, and rest all are eventual consistency. Means, like suppose if you are putting a data, and if you are first time and you're trying to access it, it will give you consistent data. But if you're updating the content, it may be read after write consistent. That is eventual read it may be. So for all the overwrite puts that we are placing it, it may be eventual consistent. It may provide you the actual content or it may not. And for the delete operation also, it is eventual read after write. So it is eventual consistent. So we have to make it sure if you are updating, it may take some time because of the replication into the different regions in the different availability zones, the S3 bucket that is doing automatically. It may take time in order to see the output, consistent output on our screen. So it is the most important topic. There may be lots of questions related to this topic, data consistency model, but always remember, for every new put, there will always be read after write consistency for every new puts. But for rest of the things, whether it's a head or get, we will have eventual consistency will be there. For even for the overwrite puts, means updating the content, and for delete also, there will be eventual consistency will be there. So there will be some time lag in order to see the updates in our output from the S3 bucket. So let's talk about the lab. In the lab section, I will show you of how to create a bucket, what is versioning, what are the permissions, and what are the various properties that it is having, and how to access the content that we have, and what is the URL. That is the most important thing in the exam. Maybe one or two questions will be there regarding the URL, which is a valid URL, and also we should know how the URL is being formed. So let's move on to the practical lab session. So I will go to the AWS console. So let's log into the management console. We can also have different users roles being defined in order to access the services. So currently I'm using a root user, but it is not recommended. We should have an IAM user depending upon the different services. Whoever is using, they should log in with their credentials rather than using the root user. Root user is a main admin user that is used to perform all the unrestricted access to all the services. So it's not recommended, but I'm using this. So let's log into this. Once we log in, you can see over here, there are a whole bunch of services that are there that is being provided by AWS, whether it's a compute, storage, database, machine learning, AR, VR, satellite, blockchain, cost management, business, migration and transfer, network content delivery, security. So it's IoT, then game development, constrained robotics. So it's a huge amount of services that are being provided by AWS. Another important thing, it's quite flexible. The pay you go means whatever services you are using, the amount, the rate at which you are using, you have to pay for that. You need not to buy any package or any a pay in advance or something for using the services. The whatever you access, you have to pay for that monthly base. So you can see under the storage, we have this S3. So I will click on this. Another important thing, when they talk about storage of a content, when they are talking about object level storage, it always means it is a S3 bucket. So when they are talking about anything else, content storage and all that, is we have the Elastic file system is also there. We can use that one, but for today's session, we are using the bucket. So you can see over here, it's by default on the top, it is coming over here, global. So it is listing, it is showing you all the buckets that we have. And it is showing you the regions in which the bucket is being created, as well as the access to the buckets, as well as the date and time it was being created. Okay, so let's move ahead. Let's create a bucket over here. So you can see over here, bucket name must be unique and must not contain spaces and uppercase letters. So that is the key point that we need to remember this. So let's create a bucket. That's my bucket name. So here you can see the AWS region. I'm choosing Middle East Bahrain because that is the closest region to me, as I'm based in Qatar. So I'm using this Middle East. So you can see over here, there are different regions are there: Canada, Europe, Asia Pacific, United States, South America. So I'm using this Middle East Bahrain South 1. Now here we can copy the settings from the existing bucket, but I'm not copying now. That's the optional option over here. By default, always remember it will block public access for every content that we are placing in the bucket. So by default, this is enable block all public access. Next is bucket versioning. It is currently disabled. We'll go into this part later on. Let's create a bucket first. Then the tags also optional in order to track the access to the bucket. So we can use the tags. Default automatically encrypt new objects stored in the bucket. By default, encryption is enabled, but we can also enable the server side encryption. There are a few more advanced settings that we'll go on later. Let's create a bucket first. So we can see over here, we have created the bucket. Bucket and objects are not public currently. So let's see whether we have some content over here. Okay, let's click on this bucket over here. So you can see over here, we have lots of options. Currently, this bucket is empty. It is not having any content inside it, no objects. We have the properties. We have the permissions, various metrics, how much the bucket size and all. This is a like graphical representation of your bucket content and the access that is being made to this bucket. Then the management we can have, life cycle we can maintain. So we are not going to enable the life cycle by default. We will use a standard storage that we're having, and various access points we can also create. That is for CloudFront access. We can define the endpoints over here. So let's go to the object. You can see we can create a folder also. So let's create a folder over here. So let's say the folder name is test, or let's say it is AWS. Create a folder. So you can see this is what I was talking about. So this is the AWS. So now here, let's upload some file over here. Add the files. Let's take some picture over here. You can upload anything, any Word, Excel, or anything. I'm just taking a picture file. So you can see day1.jpg image file. It is a size of 138.6 KB. And this is the S3 Guru AWS 121122. That is my bucket name / AWS. That is the logical arrangement in which I'm placing this day1.jpg. Now here we have this enable bucket versioning. I'm not going to enable now. Let's upload the content over here. So you can see now I will go back to my, close this one. It's now you can see over here, this is our object over here. Now, if you click on this object, if you try to access this one, if you see over here, that is the object URL. Now, this URL I'm talking about. Now, if you see this one, this is our bucket name .s3, then .region. So this is my ME, that is the Middle East South 1.aws.com. So this is the region, this is the bucket name, and this is my key, aws/day1.jpg. So you can see over here also the key is mentioned over here. So let's click on this URL over here, or you can just copy the URL and open in a new tab. So you can see the access is being denied because we haven't defined any permission of access to this bucket. So by default, whatever you place in the bucket, there is no permission to access. So I will just go back to my bucket over here. So I will click on this and I will go to the, or you can just go to the root bucket like over here. You can click here and you can give the permissions. So I will edit this one and remove this option over here and save the changes. So you can see you are updating the access permission to the bucket and you are making it public. So I will just confirm this one. Let's click confirm. So now whatever the content, now if you see, go back to the buckets over here, you can see it's mentioned over here, objects can be public. It's not mentioning that object, all the objects are public. So if you go back to your logical arrangement, so this is the file that we have uploaded. So let's click on this. You can see still it is not accessible. This means we have to give access permission at the object level too. So I will go to the permission. We can just go back over here, AWS, and you can select like this. Oh, let's say this one. Let's select this, permissions, edit. Save the changes. It's just overwriting the permission. Let's refresh this our URL. Still it is not there, which means we have to go back to our bucket. Let's see, objects can be public. Let's go back, AWS. Let's click on this. We can also do it from here, make public. That is the object level that we can define a permission. Make public. So let's refresh our URL over here. You can see now this file is accessible. So this is how we can maintain an object level permission, whether we can access that file or not. Now, another thing, I will go back to my bucket over here. In this bucket, I'll go to the properties. So in the properties, there is bucket versioning. So when we talk about the bucket versioning, it means Like suppose we have uploaded the file day1.jpg. If we are modifying that file, it will be saved with a different version ID. Now, another thing, important thing, before enabling the bucket versioning, whatever objects you have placed, it will be having a null version ID. That is one of the most important thing we need to remember, that without versioning, whatever the version, once you enable it, the previous objects will be having a null version ID. Now let's click on this. So I will enable this one. We can suspend it anytime. And once you suspend it, it will overwrite the latest version object. So let's enable this one. So I have enabled the versioning. Let's go back to our bucket. We'll go inside. You can see over here, list versions. So you can see currently the version ID is null, because when at the time when we uploaded this object, it was bucket versioning was not enabled. Now it is being enabled, and you can see it is null. So let's upload the same file again. That is day1.jpg. Let's upload this one. So it's uploaded successfully. So let's go back to our bucket. Now you can see over here list versions. Now you can see this is the version ID that is being generated. You can disable the version ID at any time. Now, if you upload again the same file, go back to our bucket, list versions. Now you can see. So for each put that we are making for the same file, it is generating a unique version ID. Now, I will go back to my bucket properties, and I can just disable this versioning over here, suspend. I acknowledge this and save it. So let goes to the object back. Now you can see over here, list version. So it is showing the previous one. Now if I upload the same file again, so let's make a note over here of this version ID. So this is the latest one. You can see 1439, it was being uploaded. So this will be replaced with the new file. Now let's see the versions over here. You can see 1440. So you can see it is becoming null. So it is not touching the previous ones. It is just updating the one, and the versioning is disabled. It is showing you null. And you can see also the storage class, that is the standard storage that we are using in order to save the objects. So let's go back to this, our bucket. Now, if you go back to the properties over here, so that was one versioning. And here we can also define a tag over here. Tag is just a simple, easier name that we can remember in order to track the usage of this particular service. So we can tag our bucket. So you can see the key is coming over here. By default, encryption is there. So we are not making any changes. Now for the storage standards, we can configure over here, like we can define the object lifecycle. This I will show you in the later stages. Like once you configure the object lifecycle, like after 30 days, whether you want to delete it or you want to place a marker on it, it will not it will not delete it, but it will place a delete marker on it. So we can recover back our file, and we can, whether we want to archive it, we want to place it in the Glacier, or we can want to put it in the deep archive. So depending upon the various like one zone or infrequent access, so depending upon that, we will be charged for storing the objects inside the S3 bucket. Now this server access logging. So by default, we can enable this one and we can choose the bucket in which we have to save the logs. So once you enable it, you can see over here, we can define the bucket name or we can browse the S3 bucket. So it will save all the log files that we are for accessing the bucket. So you can choose any of the bucket over here. It will show you all the buckets over here, irrespective of the regions. We can choose any one of the bucket in which we want to save the log files. So I'm not enabling this one just to show you the option. Let's go back to the properties again. So even we can also enable the CrowdTrail for the auditing purpose. We can use this, we can utilize this easily. And we can also enable the event notification. Now, about the event notification, like if somebody is accessing or somebody is making a put or overwriting or deleting any file, we can create a notification over here. So once you click on the notification, you can just define the event name and a prefix over here. And you can see over here, what are the options that we have, event types, whether we are making a put, post, copy, multipart upload. Now, multipart upload, S3 only allows 5 GB of object to be uploaded in one go. Rest, it is having an automatic. We have unlimited storage. We can upload above 5 GB that will be automatically uploaded in multiple parts. That is handled by the AWS S3. So we need not to worry about the size of the object. So all object delete events, permanently deleted, delete marker created over here, restore the object. So for all these events, we can create a notification and we can integrate with SNS and SQS later on, and we can save it. So we will get a notification whether to the SNS or we can also enable it on our SQS, simple queuing services and notification services. So we will get the notification over there about any of these events that are happening. So let's go back to our bucket again, properties. Now here we have this transfer acceleration is not. Now this transfer acceleration is used in order to have a faster data transfer. Now another important thing, we have to make it show all the features or all the properties of S3 bucket are not provided in all the regions. So I have chosen my region ME South 1. So this transfer acceleration is not provided in my region. We can use a US region or Ohio region and all. So in order to get that particular service or feature. Then we have the object lock. So it doesn't support enabling object lock after a bucket has been created. Then we also have request pair. Suppose you are running a website that lets the consumers use or utilize or view the videos or images by paying the service amount. So we can enable this one. Rather than we paying for the service of storage, we can request the payers who are going to utilize our content or the objects placed in the S3 bucket, they have to pay the amount. This one we have to integrate with the endpoints, then only we can use this. Another one is the static website hosting. Now, if you're having some static content for your website and all, we can use the static website hosting. Let's do one thing. I will create, or let's edit this one and enable this one. So you can see host a static website, and we have to define the default page. Let's say index.html. And these all are optional over here. Let's save the changes. So I'll go to my desktop over here. Let me create one index.html file. Then we will upload to the S3 bucket. So index.html. Let's create over here. So let's put some simple content over here. We can upload the CSS file, JS files and all. So let's upload this file. Go to our S3 bucket. Let's choose this bucket. Now inside the AWS folder, I'm going to upload the file, add files. Over here, index.html. So let's choose this one. I'm not enabling the versioning. Let's upload. So close, successfully uploaded. We can select this file. We have to give the permission, make it public, then only we can access it. Make it public. Now let's click on this file. So we can copy the URL and we can paste it over here. So that's how we can create a static website using S3 bucket. So we can use a CloudFront, and we can use one of the services of S3 over here, that is for routing your content, that is route 53. That is route 53. We can use it for scalable DNS and domain name registration. So that bucket will act as a container for your static website, and we can route 53 will be acting as CloudFront. We can enable that one to access the content of a static website using route 53. It is similar like a hosting. We have to create the A records and AAA records, and we have to use a CloudFront map to our bucket in order to access our website. That is the later stages we can do that. Now, even we have for now, whatever access we have the bucket or content, if you are having a static website, it will show you not a HTTPS. By default, it will go to the HTTP bucket because we are giving the access as a public. So in order to, we can use the AWS Certificate Manager in order to make our website, in order to get a HTTPS certificate. So we have the certificate manager to deploy the SSL and TLS certificates. So you can see under the S3, I'm having this bucket over here, jscloudtech.com. That is my personal blog over here that I have uploaded. So you can see over here, while I'm accessing, I'm using the bucket name. So you can see it is coming over here, HTTPS, and the certificate is valid. It is being issued by Amazon. So for today's session, these were the basic fundamentals that we can, how we can utilize this S3 services by the storage services provided by Amazon. I hope you enjoyed my session. Thank you.